Good morning and welcome to Legally Speaking with Attorney Antoinette Osbourne. This program is for information purposes. Hold on one second. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So this program is for information purposes only. If you need legal advice, you can contact me, Antoinette Osbourne, at 718-502-9137. The office focuses on divorce, immigration, bankruptcy, real estate, and estate matters. We also do eviction proceedings. So Nicola is saying she is not hearing. Let me see something here. Not sure why. Nicola, can you hear me now? All right. Nicola, you should be able to hear me now. If you can't hear me, let me know. But you should be able to hear me. Let me see. One second. I'm trying to find out if the volume. Okay. So she said she's hearing. All right. So this morning I wanted to discuss Social Security in an immigration context, right? So having lawful status is so important when it comes to your Social Security benefits, because the only person who is eligible to reap those benefits is people who are lawfully present in the United States. So if it is that, God forbid, you lose status, and this anyone who has contributed 10 quarters or more, you're able to get your Social Security benefits. And this is why it is so important to maintain status. And what you'll find is people who have been deported and they get sent back to their home country despite working here 10, 20, 30 years. And there's no real statute of limitations concerning deportation when it comes to criminal activities. And this is what is so important that I don't think a lot of people understand. They think because probably their crime was committed in the 70s or so forth that they can't get deported. If you have been convicted of an aggravated felony and you can't, and there's no waiver for an aggravated felony, right? So if you've been convicted of an aggravated felony and there's one waiver, but a lot of people aren't eligible for it, right? So if you're able to get that 212C waiver, you're fine, but a lot of people will not qualify because of the timing of their criminal activity. So to get this, because if you're working, one of the things, especially if your company does not participate in a pension plan, and what you are looking forward to is your Social Security benefit payments. And to lose that, and what we have to understand is as we get older, of course, our body ages with us. And to lose that benefit when you're at retirement age, where for some people, this is their only source of income. But if you lose your legal status, because remember, it is only for people who are lawfully present in the United States. So if after contributing into the Social Security system for years, you lose that status, then one of the dire consequences is you're going to lose that Social Security benefit. And for people who have been here for years, I can't understand why they would not file for their citizenship. They believe because they're not committing crimes, they are not going to be in jeopardy. I had a young man who came to me the other day, and what happened was he was buying goods from this other gentleman. But one of the things with the charge of receiving stolen property, if the price of the good is too good to be true, that's because it isn't. And unknown to him, this is a hardworking, contributing member of society, but he wanted to get, I can't remember if it was some cable cords, and you have someone who said, oh, I can sell it to you at this price. Good deal, right? All right, so you think. Unknown to him, the guy was being watched. And as soon as he bought the cable cards, of course, they run down on the guy, he gets arrested, he gets charged for receiving. So it's easy, it's so easy to catch a charge in this country. And you just have to be careful. No, the receiving did not, because of course, one of the things with theft crimes, you have to start worrying if the loss to the victim is over $10,000. Because if that is the case, then that simple crime, right, which could have been like a misdemeanor, has now risen to an aggravated felony for immigration purposes. And I just want to encourage you, just be very careful. I think people who are here, they've been here over that 5 years, file for your citizenship. I am going to encourage you. This place with certain countries allows for dual citizenship. I don't think it benefits you. You're probably thinking, oh, I'm not doing anything. This place, it's so easy to get a record, right? And nobody wants to be in that position, having contributed into the social security system for years. You lose your status, you end up getting deported, and all that monies that you were investing to get that monthly benefit when you are retired is gone. So now you're back in your home country, you don't have a source of income, there's no livelihood for you. And I'll tell you this, for example, Jamaica is ridiculously expensive. Spending in Jamaica is as if you're living here in the United States, but you're not making the wages to afford that sort of lifestyle. So I'm just encouraging people, in order to get your social security benefits, you must maintain that lawful status, and not only that lawful status, but that lawful presence. And that's why people who have contributed in the system for years and they've gotten deported, they're not going to get a dollar. Yeah? All right. So just tuning in, welcome. You're listening to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. The office focuses on divorce, immigration, bankruptcy, real estate, and estate matters. Good morning, Steffi. Good morning, Match. So this morning I'm focusing on Social Security because it's so important. You know, people for years contribute into the system, and it's a disaster if they lose their lawful status. They are going to lose this benefit. For some people who do not have a contribution into a pension system with their employer, for some, this is going to be their only source of income once they have reached retirement age. Now, somebody may say, oh, well, you know, I can probably do Uber or whatever. We do not know health-wise, years from now, right, what our health condition is going to be. So as a result of which, protect yourself in terms of just maintain your lawful status so that you can in fact get this payout, right? Now, if you go to certain countries to live, you're not not going to get that social security payment. You're not going to get that benefit because if you are living in a certain country, social security is not going to send that monies to you. And what is happening is, for green card holders especially, if you are out of the country for 6 months or more, you're putting that green card in jeopardy, right? And when you're out of the country 6 months or more, they stop that benefit. So in order to track your presence in the United States, Social Security has established a system that they are independently able to monitor your travel history. So for people who want to be out of the country, for if you're out 5 months and 29 days and then you come back for another 39 days for social security purposes, you are good. But immigration purposes, the officer looks at your travel history, and if it is clear that you are not residing in the United States, this is not your permanent place of residence. For people who decide that they want to take that risk, I hope you have a qualifying relative who would be able to allow you, if you end up in removal proceedings, that they can file for an adjustment of status for you. If you do not have that option, you are going to be ordered removed. So for people who wish to travel, and if you are a green card holder and it is your intent to be out of the country for 6 months or more, you probably have business that you are tying up. You probably have a sixth relative that you wish to take care of. I'm going to encourage you, apply for a re-entry permit. That is the document that allows you to stay. So one of the issues with this re-entry permit is you're still losing time that would count towards your physical presence in the United States, but at least you are not likely to be placed in removal, or what they call, we know as deportation proceedings, because you received permission to be outside of the countries, right? Now, countries that you can be out if you're a US citizen, and they will still send that payment. If you are abroad, these countries are mainly like countries in Europe where they have some form of a bilateral agreement. No Caribbean country is on this list, and no African country is on this list, right? So if you're looking to be out and you are a US citizen, you expect that social security payment, you can Google and research to see whether or not your country is on this list, right? Now, once you're out for more than 6 months, you're barred in receiving payments. Now, the exception is if you've worked 40 quarters, and 40 quarters usually amounts to a period of like 10 years. So if you work 40 quarters and you're seeking this benefit, then, and you're looking to be out, right? There's a bar to receiving if you're out for 6 months or more, but this is an exception. There's also an exception to people who are in the active military, because of course, their orders will take them out often. Some people are out for a year, 2 years, performing their military duties, right? Okay. Once you're deported, I'm going to emphasize this. For people who have been deported, I have people who come from outside the country, they want to get their social security payments, but they cannot. I don't have good news for them, right? And I am not going to give them something to hope for. They've lost that benefit. You no longer have that lawful presence. You're not going to be paid that money. And people are upset because they've worked for years. The money is taken. They have contributed to the system. they want their money, but it does not work like that. There are criterias to getting these monies. And one of them is that you must be lawfully present in the United States. So if you have been deported, you have lost that lawful status, you're outside the country, you do not meet the definition of being lawfully present. And this is why filing for your citizenship, you have children who come here. A lot of these children who come here when they are extremely young and they come in as green card holders, they grow up with their citizens' friends and they think that they are on the same status with them. And it is so hard for these children where they commit crimes. And it's often what I find with a lot of young people is that they like quick money. It's a microwave generation and they come, nobody really wants to put in that work, right? So you want to reap, but you don't sow. So you look away where you can try and get quick money. And now they engage in a lifestyle that does not facilitate them remaining here legally because they are going to get caught up in the legal system and they get returned home. Often a lot of them are displaced. They have these criminal activities that prevents re-entry. And it's hard. It's hard for them having been raised here. And most of the time there's no family situation there for them to go back to because most of their relatives are here. So if it is that you have brought up your children and they do not qualify for that derivative citizenship from you, I am going to encourage you once they turn 18 years old, let them apply for their citizenship because these sweet little munchkins that you are raising, once they become adults, they turn into complete rugrats and often some of them will be a menace to society. You can't control them, right? And this is where, when you're raising your children, you have to be careful. Sometimes I see how these children speak to their parents. And I know when I was young, if I had ever spoken to my parents like that, I would be on the floor. But the children these days, it's a fearlessness. It is a don't care, or as country people say, don't care mentality. It's like in life they have absolutely nothing to lose. And these are the children that go out, there is no order, there is no respect for authority, and oftentimes they will engage in criminal activities. Once your children are here and you see them turning 18, they're moving into that spectrum. You don't know how their life is going to hold. You don't know. And even though you give the necessary instructions where you're hoping that they will be positive members of society, not all of your children are going to turn out this way. So in order to protect them, encourage them that they file for their citizenship. If they are automatic citizens, then it doesn't matter. I remember one of my clients, her mother had naturalized 3 days before she was arrested. A lot of these young girls, they want to be the ride or die to their men. And when a man is engaging in some serious criminal activities, and that was the only thing that saved her because she was a willing participant in that crime. 3 days before her mom naturalized, before the incident that caused her to be locked up. Yeah. I've had girls come into my office, girls you'd never ever believe have ever been arrested. And when I asked them, have you ever been arrested? Yes. What's the reason? Engaging in criminal activity because of some man them take up. It doesn't make sense. And you can teach your children, but that lesson has to be received. And oftentimes society likes to blame the parents, but sometimes it's not the parents' fault. But when you engage in certain criminal activities, it puts you in a position where you're going to be ordered removed, right? You don't have a way out. And this is why before you do certain things, it's always good to, get legal advice. All right. So for deported aliens, sadly, you're going to lose this benefit. There is no way out for you where you're going to, once you're eligible to receive Social Security. I think the age right now to get it is 67 for the regular application. However, if it is that you are seeking an earlier benefit, I can't recall age. These things change all the time, right? And sometimes I'm wondering if they're running out of monies, because you have some people who really do scam the system as well. And they're getting Social Security disability, and there's nothing wrong with them. These are people who really should be working. But it's not for me to judge. I'm not a welfare fraud investigator. All right. Now, so Social Security is tracking your travel, right? And when you are eligible to receive it, if your travel history is such that you are out of the country for 6 months or more, you're expecting to receive that benefit, it's not going to get paid to you, right? All right. One of the good things to this, though, because you do have people who have been deported, but they're US citizen children or lawful permanent resident child remains in the United States. So that child gets the benefit of the Social Security payment. And I believe they will pay that child until their 18th birthday. If they are 19, I believe they have to be in high school. So even though you as a parent lost the benefit because you're deported, if your US citizen child or that lawful permanent resident child still resides in the United States, that child will be able to get the benefit. All right, so let's look at the Social Security card now, because this is such an important card to have if it is that you want to transact certain business, or you want to get a job. It's extremely important. So I just want to run down the list of people who are eligible for the Social Security card. So US citizens, of course, green card holders, or who are called lawful permanent residents, someone who is authorized to work. And that is why, even though for work permits, we apply for babies, the reason is because once they have the work permit, they get that Social Security card, right? International students who are eligible for employment, and a person who has been awarded asylum, because of course now they have their work permit, they are moving on to that green card applications, and persons with their extensions, right? TPS people, deferred action, people who have been paroled and who have been authorized to work, they get that work permit. Now, Social Security will issue this card, right? However, one of the most difficult things you will find is if someone has used your Social Security card, for you to get a new Social Security number, it's near to impossible. So be very careful with and this is why some people do not want to reveal their Social Security numbers, because they are terrified of identity theft, because it is the hardest thing. And when I say the hardest thing to get a different number, it is hard, right? You have people who will get this card because even though they don't have work authorization, they need the number for certain federal benefits, state or local benefits. So for those people who are in that position, they will actually be issued a Social Security card, right? Because the purpose that they need it for is for state or local law purposes. So not everybody will be awarded this card. If you have, however, some business that you have to transact, then yes, right? All right. So let's look at how you will not get a card, right? Because some people will not be issued a card because they need to transact certain business. If to get a driver's license, that's not a basis for you to get a social security card, right? If you have a difficulty in obtaining a cell phone, a mortgage, a bank account, or a professional license, that's not a reason to give you a social security card. Or, for example, you want to attend school. That's not a reason to give you a social security card. But for those people who are able to get the social security card because of some state, federal, or local law purposes, what you're going to find endorsed on that card is not valid for employment purposes. If it is that you received your social security card, probably because you are applying for an adjustment of status, then what you'll see endorsed on the card is valid only with DHS authorization, right? Before it used to be INS. Well, INS is now the legacy agency, right? So when you're applying for this social security card, at the time of your application, the Social Security, now these are two federal agencies, and the transfer of information is easy, it is permissible. And Social Security actually checks your immigration status, right? When you are applying for that Social Security card. Now, if it is when you put in your application, you cannot be verified, they send your information over to the Inspector General for a fraud investigation. So for those of you who are applying for this Social Security card because you have a link, be very careful. You do not want the federal government prosecuting you, right? I I'll never forget. I had a client who he had a link, and he went ahead and applied for a U.S. passport, right? But that link was not a sound link, and he got arrested, right? False claim to U.S. citizenship. So here it is now, years later. He's married to a U.S. citizen, and in the interview, the officer turns the monitor, shows his picture, and he didn't ask him. He turned to the wife, "Is this your husband?" And she said, "Yes," because of course, in the interview, she's going to be honest. She said, our husband face on the screen, but the picture is in a U.S. passport. So when they come down, you get these certain links. But when they come and they raid, because they are watching that employee, because that employee is suspected in engaging in fraudulent activities by issuing, whether it's a social security card or the Department of State issuing passports, and they're not authorized. They go through all the files that that employee has worked on. So now here it is, you are caught up, you are arrested, and one of the most dangerous things is with this false claim, if it's done, after September 30th, 1996, this false claim to U.S. citizenship, you will never get the green card and you'll never be eligible for citizenship. And this is a question where they actually recently added to the adjustment of status application. It wasn't there before, it was on the citizenship questionnaire. But for people who go ahead and answer, yes, I've claimed to be a citizen, and this was done after September 30th, 1996, you have now caused yourself to be placed in removal proceedings. So I just want to encourage Everyone just be very careful of the links that you have. Sometimes your friends will think that they're helping you. They see a situation, they know you want to work. Be very careful of borrowing friends or family members their US papers. If you're caught with this is a false claim. I don't care if you get married to a US citizen. I don't care if your child becomes a citizen and wants to file for you. It's not going to happen once this claim is made after September 30th, 1996. And Social Security is checking against immigration to verify whether or not you have lawful status in this country or you are authorized to get it. And this is where some people, they're so gullible and being desperate. Being desperate is one of the saddest things that can happen to anybody in the United States, because this is where you invite certain vultures in your life. And there's nothing like a vulture to smell desperation nearing death. And you will get abused and people will take advantage. And one of the worst things you can be is being in a situation here where you become desperate and you engage in activities where if you're in your own home country, you would not even think of doing. And this is why here it's so easy to get a charge. Just be very careful, right? Now, I want to talk about the tax IDs because people who do not qualify, it's a damn if you do it, it's a damn if you don't, right? Because really, you are not supposed to be working without legal authorization. However, if there's any sort of amnesty or any sort of relief, then you have to show your physical presence in the United States, depending on the time that they have provided the relief. One of the ways to show physical presence is your tax returns. Now, for people who do not have a social security number, some employers are brave enough to take the tax ID to allow you to work, right? In applying for the tax ID, you have to file a tax return and you file that W-7 form with that tax return. The W-7 form is an application for your tax ID. When you get that tax ID must be renewed. And a lot of people don't know this. They think because back in the day, you used to get the tax ID and it lasts forever. No, you have to renew that tax ID every 5 years. It is required to be renewed. But one of the things I want to encourage, because some people don't know this, when you've worked on your tax ID and you are now in a position where you receive lawful status, you got the green card, you should go to Social Security and for all the years that you have worked on the tax ID, you should take that information, provided so Social Security can update their records and add that work history so that when you're looking to collect your Social Security benefits, because you are at that age, you now have the benefit of those years that you worked on your tax ID. And this is why the tax ID is so important, because it allows those qualifying years to add to the Social Security system so that you can, in fact, get the benefit where those years, once added, it of course ups the monies that you are entitled to, right? One of the things with the tax ID, however, is that the IRS is asking for passports, birth certificates, because they want to prove your nationality. I am going to encourage you, do not send your passport and birth certificates. Go to your consulate Once you're at your consulate, get from them a certified document that you are a national of your country. For Jamaica, it's a Jamaican consulate in Manhattan, which recently moved. By the way, they are no longer on, I think, Third Avenue, they've moved. But go to your consulate, get something that they will issue you a document that shows that you are a national of that country. Send that with your tax ID. One of the hardest things is, let's say, for example, right? Because what you have to realize is that the burden is always on the immigrant. It's not on the government for most of the time. So let's say you entered with your passport. There is no proof as to the date of your entry. Some people have their I-94s in the passport and they send it to the IRS, the document is lost. They go for a replacement I-94, there's no proof to enter the country. Or that very important stamp by CBP when you enter the country, if there's no proof of an I-94, that stamp usually allows for people to produce evidence that they had a lawful admission. So it's so important to retain your passports. Immigrants often, we are moving, make a copy of your passport, your visa page, your I-94, that CBP stamp, because the I-94s only became electronic as of, I think, June 2013. Before that, you're getting that white paper, that white card. So if you've lost that white card and you have sent to immigration for a replacement white card and they don't find you, I'll tell you what happened recently with one of my clients. Well, two of them. She came on the same flight with her sister. So she entered on her passport. She entered when she was 6. And now her son, who was born now in the United States, because she's been here from she's 6 years old, born in the United States, is now eligible to file for her. We sent for the I-94. There's no I-94 record for her. Impossible, right? She knows she came. She knows she came with her sister. Their passports were stamped, but she lost her passport. She doesn't have the I-94. So what's your next step? Your next step is you're going to apply to immigration for that replacement I-94. But here's the disaster now where immigration says there's no proof of your lawful admission. So now you're in a position where you have to go outside the country on the basis that you received a provisional waiver. And I'll tell you what saved her. When she was younger, she did meet this crisis man, right? They eventually got married and he had filed for her. But before they could go to the interview, of course, the relationship bust up, so the case was denied. But the plus to that marriage was it caused her to be 245I. So she never need to show proof. And that was for those of you who were here in the 2001 period where Clinton had brought back the 245I, where he didn't care how you entered, as long as you could show that you're physically present in the country as of December 20th, 2020, and your application went into immigration before April 30th, 2001, then when they crossed the border, you were allowed to use this basis to adjust your status. So years ago when the crisis man had filed for her, the case got denied by just petitioning for her. It sealed her fate and it allowed her to be 245I. And that was the way she was in fact allowed to adjust her status, right? So it's so important that you maintain your passports. Be very careful who you are sending that physical document to. I'm going to encourage immigrants, make a copy of your biometric page. which is a page that has your name, date of birth, country you're from. Make a page of your visa. Make a copy of the visa, the biometric page. Make a copy of your I-94. Make a copy of that stamp in your passport. It is absolutely so important, right? I don't want you sending off your birth certificates or sending off that original passport document. No, go to your consulate and get a certified document where it states you are a national of that country. Now, I'm going to wrap up with regards to Social Security fraud. You know, people will take certain risks. For anybody who is thinking of committing a crime, one of the first things that you should look to see is what is the criminal liability for this. I'll never forget I had a client, and she said to me, Antoinette, how much time you think I would get if I did this? And I said, I'm not a criminal attorney. When she went and spoke to the criminal attorney, I think he told her probably 6 months. And she said, Antoinette, I can't give the system 6 months. Like, some people actually plan this, like you piss off somebody, so they actually plan to engage in criminal activity because they can't do the time. So certain sentences are not a deterrent for some people. For any sort of Social Security fraud, that's an imprisonment for up to 5 years. I don't know who have time now to give the government 5 years of them life. At my age, that's like an eternity now. I don't even have a 30 days, yeah, to give anybody. So just be very careful of the activities that you do engage in that will cause you to lose your freedom. It's not worth it, yeah? When you lose years of your life, right? And people who you think are going to hold you down, they're not going to do this. So some of you young ladies will go out there and engage in criminal activity thinking that once you get sentenced and you get locked up, this guy is going to be here waiting. You don't even reach your cell yet and I'm already with him side girl. So just be careful as to the sacrifices that you're making in certain relationships. It's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it. It is going to be a struggle for you. You have a record. It affects your ability to get a job, right? Certain things that you do, they come back years later to haunt you. And I don't think people are telling people this who want to engage in criminal activity. It causes monetary stress in terms of legal fees. It causes that time away. If you are incarcerated, opportunities lost to engage in Social Security fraud. I would not encourage anybody to do that. Yeah, nobody really has 5 years to give anybody like that. I don't care how young you are. Yeah, because in those 5 years, you could actually be looking to achieve certain things, right? All right, so that is it for today. I have spoken to one of my clients because I want them to come on to share their story. Good morning, Christopher. Good morning, Renee. Because I think it's going to be a learning experience for a lot of people and to show you the wickedness that happens. And hopefully he can come on next Sunday for him to share his story and the difficulty that nearly jeopardized his stay. We were able to overcome, and I think it's something that immigrants should be aware of to protect themselves, and his story is so important, so important to our community. So hopefully he will be able to come on next week. The week after that, I want to speak to another client to come on because I think that their stories will encourage people who are going through it with immigration and that they are able to rise above adversity. So hopefully with the next 2 weeks, we will be able to listen and learn and, share an experience where out of a very negative occurrence came a positive outcome. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. See you here next Sunday. Stay blessed and be blessed.